Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'm State Senator Seth Lewis from the 24th District, representing DuPage and Cook counties. I am here with Senate Minority Leader John Curran, who's behind me, along with Naperville Police Chief Jason Arres and Lemont Police Chief Marc Maton, who is also president of the Illinois Police Chiefs. I think we all can agree as Illinoisans that Illinois has a great deal of potential. As lawmakers, we need to be doing everything we can to make Illinois a place where people want to live rather than leave. A key part of this, though, is enacting policies that ensure a reasonable level of law and order in our communities. Illinoisans deserve nothing less. We are here this afternoon because there is an important issue we want to bring to light, and that is we need to respect our law enforcement officers. We need to demonstrate respect for our police officers. We had a funeral this week due to lack of overall respect for our law enforcement officers. It's a problem here in Illinois. The speakers that will follow will provide examples of an issue that we are seeing here in Illinois where lack of respect for our police officers when people are being pulled over, and we are seeing police chases, we are seeing those who are fleeing and trying to elude law enforcement officers in high-speed chases, especially in DuPage and the Collier counties. It's a problem. Some communities like Wakanda and Aurora have considered putting in their own stronger ordinances and trying to address this problem on their own. This is a problem, though, that I believe, along with the gentlemen that are about to speak, should have a statewide solution to address it. The IML is in support of this. And with that, I'd like to introduce Police Chief Jason Arres to the microphone.
Thank you, Senator Lewis. Before I begin my comments, I brought 3 videos from our department, in-car camera videos, that I thought would help illustrate what we're seeing on the streets in Naperville to give you a better picture of what we're up against. So if we could start that video, please. So in 2 of these, you're gonna see right here, one of our squad cars is intentionally rammed. We were going to stop that vehicle for traffic and other offenses, rams a squad car and takes off from us. You won't see the whole pursuit. It's just a short clip here of this car getting away by using ramming technique. All right, well, I guess we're only gonna show one that I had today, it looks like. Is that right? Okay. It's my pleasure to be here today to speak on behalf of this proposed legislation that I'm passionate about and I've been advocating for years. As the police chief in Illinois' 4th largest city, I can tell you that incidents of motorists fleeing police have increased dramatically in the last few years, not just in Naperville, but in our state as a whole. Each year prior to 2020, our department would experience anywhere from 15 to 30 of these incidents of fleeing and eluding per year, which is where we attempt to make a traffic stop or stop a vehicle and it takes off from us. Over the last few years, that number has risen greatly, with a high of 137 occurrences one year. In the last 3 years, DuPage County State's Attorney Bob Berlin shared with me yesterday that his office has documented a 151% increase in these types of cases throughout DuPage. This trend is extremely alarming and highly dangerous to every citizen and police officer out there. When someone flees from the police, they're not stopping for red lights, they're not stopping for stop signs, and they're certainly not obeying our speed limits. So your family, my family, or anyone else on the roadway who has the bad fortune of being nearby is placed in immediate danger. Motorists, as you just saw there, have actually hit our squad cars in their attempts to evade us, which puts our officers at further risk. The drastic increase in fleeings we've seen in recent years is a level of lawlessness I haven't seen in my 23 years in this profession. There's a perception that this only occurs when individuals are driving stolen cars, which is not the case at all. These are individuals who, for some reason, feel it's acceptable to disregard a lawful traffic stop and flee from our officers. putting innocent people in all of our communities at risk. Increasing the penalties and enhancing accountability for such actions is a critical step in helping to curb this behavior and reverse this disturbing trend. I'm a firm believer that the more serious the consequences for fleeing from the police, the less likely drivers are to do this. I am truly grateful to Leader Curran, Senator Lewis, and all of this bill's co-sponsors for their willingness to propose a change that will enhance the safety of citizens across the entire state by increasing the penalties for this reckless behavior. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. So good afternoon. I'm Marc Maton. I'm the president of the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police. For the last few years, fleeing suspects have become an everyday occurrence in the Chicago area on the streets and roadways around the metro area. And we've been trying to bring attention to this activity and to come up with solutions to stop it. I applaud Senator Curran for submitting bills, because we've done it for about 4 years now to put these bills, but it's just fallen on deaf ears in the General Assembly. As you heard from the previous two speakers of the incredible dangers involved in these situations, we need to address the issue somehow. Suspects already facing a felony, if caught, are not worried about an added misdemeanor charge if they somehow get caught from running, which most of the time they don't. They have a strong incentive to flee, and we need to take away that incentive. Flagrant refusal to stop lawful directions of police is a contagious in many other arenas that too often lately conclude in unfortunate situations. Many municipal leaders are also frustrated with the police policies discouraging pursuits and are now pushing for more aggressive tactics. Additionally, fleeing suspects, they follow no rules. They blow red lights, they drive in the opposite lane of traffic, they drive at excessive speeds. This occurs even when police choose not to pursue because the suspect presumes the chase is on. The dangers of these pursuits are dangerous to not only the police, the fleeing suspect, but mostly to the unsuspecting driving public that is going from one destination to another and presumes that other motorists are following the traffic laws. There have been many high-profile bad outcomes to these situations in the past when incidents of fleeing were more sporadic than they are today. Now, these situations are becoming more frequent as the incidents from running from the police proliferates around the state, and now we're seeing it in almost every metro area in the state of Illinois. So again, we thank Senator Curran for recognizing this danger and his willingness to fight this uphill battle spanning multiple years to find a resolution, because he's trying to save innocent motorists from getting caught up in the tragedy of a crash caused by a fleeing suspect. So thank you both.
Thank you, Chief. I want to thank both of our chiefs of police for being here with us today, and really their technical expertise. You know, the proposal that we have been working and pushing is really simple in concept. If you flee from the police and you're convicted, it is a Class 4 felony. This is not a misdemeanor level, misdemeanor style type of action. This is incredibly dangerous. This not only puts motorists at heightened risk that the chief mentioned, this also puts pedestrians at heightened risk. The reckless conduct that a licensed driver go through in fleeing is incredibly dangerous. So it is really taking a more serious approach. If there's aggravating factors, the legislation that we continue to push here would increase that to a Class 3 felony. So by way, Class 4 felony is eligible for imprisonment of 1 to 3 years. A Class 3 felony is 2 to 5 years. It is really raising the consequence is really one of the most important paths forward to curbing this behavior that is a growing epidemic all throughout the suburbs, all metro areas throughout this state. When we take a look at how other states are really combating this, we look at the state of Florida. By comparison, fleeing and eluding, basic charge in Florida is a Class 3 felony under their laws. You're eligible for jail up to 5 years. There is also a $5,000 fine and your license upon conviction is automatically suspended from 1 to 5 years. When you take that is taking a very serious approach to curbing reckless behavior, where in Illinois we continue to keep it at a misdemeanor level. It's not working. If it was working, we would not see this increase in situations where people are recklessly fleeing from the police. As policymakers, it is incumbent upon us to address situations that are becoming more and more widespread that are dangerous in nature. We have spent a lot of time in the General Assembly on criminal justice reform. Some of that has been actually reducing penalties on behavior that we as society no longer see as dangerous, as harmful. But this General Assembly has been adamant and has refused to take a look at situations that are more of a growing epidemic and consider enhanced penalties to try to curb that behavior. The one-way street approach on criminal justice reform is putting the public at risk. It is inherently dangerous to have blinders on with this. We are once again calling for and trying to highlight this, and I want to thank these chiefs for taking the time to come here and help us highlight this, that this dangerous situation continues to go unaddressed. We have had bad outcomes. We're going to continue to have bad outcomes in this state. And people are getting hurt. We need to curb this behavior. With that, since we're all gathered here today, and before we take questions, I did want to touch on another topic because we have obviously we've had some developments this week in the area of domestic violence. I am currently drafting and will be filing, hopefully by the end of this week. I got to review it first to make sure it's right. It's always important to get public policy right, but we're going to be filing legislation with regards to domestic violence abusers when they cause bodily harm. Under the Pretrial Fairness Act currently, it is the presumption that everyone be released pre-trial while awaiting your trial. Prosecutors carry that presumption. If they want to hold someone, they have to file a petition and they have to meet a standard that they are not an imminent threat to a person or the community. We want to get serious about domestic violence, domestic abusers, those that are causing bodily harm to women and children, the victims of domestic violence. We need to flip that presumption. My legislation is very simple in nature. The presumption will be flipped, and if you are charged with domestic violence with bodily injury, you'll be presumed to be detained, and it'll be the burden of the abuser to file a petition and prove that they are not an imminent threat to a person or the community. Flipping that script on these abusers, one, is going to protect more women and children who are the victims of domestic violence, but also it's going to increase the number of abusers that are actually detained and held, which is going to create a more overall safe environment and recovery environment for victims. So with that, I want to open this up to questions and answers. Well, questions, and I'll see if I have an answer. Sorry.
The driver in the video, were you only able to charge with a misdemeanor, or because he rammed the car, were there other charges you could give him?
Yeah, that changed once he rammed the vehicle. That made it quite more serious at that point.
So what kind of offense could he be charged with?
That would be, that's case specifically, I believe it was aggravated battery, aggravated fleeing, and a few other charges on it. So again, as the senator explained, aggravated fleeing is a higher level felony based on the behaviors in that situation.
Okay, so what then the law is just any, the proposed law would just be any fleeing in a motor vehicle or fleeing on foot or?
Fleeing in a motor vehicle.
Okay.
So fleeing in a motor vehicle, that is the dangerous situation that's created, Jerry. I would note right now in the current law, in aggravated fleeing and eluding, where you see action like that, ramming a police car, is a Class 4 felony. So under the proposed legislation, that would also be increased to a Class 3, would be eligible for imprisonment up to 5 years.
Question for the chiefs. Curious about your opinions on this bill in the General Assembly. It's called Curran's bill that would basically require law enforcement to remove a firearm from a person who has an order of protection against them. It's a big thing that domestic violence advocates are pushing for. From a law enforcement perspective, is that feasible? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so we talked about this beforehand, and there are active negotiations. The law enforcement community has been brought in by the advocates of that bill to work through the mechanics. It's an incredibly important process. These are very dangerous, inherently dangerous situations. It is incumbent upon us as policymakers to separate domestic abusers from firearms. However, executing a search warrant is equally a dangerous situation when firearms are involved, and it's incumbent upon us to get it right as policymakers, because ultimately the law enforcement officials behind me and the men and women that they serve as their chiefs are going to be held to account when those situations don't go right. When we think about the Breonna Taylor situation in Louisville and the tragedy that occurred, this is why that highlights why it's so important to get the policy right. You cannot simply send in two police officers to execute a search warrant in a situation where an offender is known, one, to have violent propensity, they're an abuser, and two, they have firearms. So these take tactical teams, these take coordination, and unfortunately that legislation did not include input from the experts at the start. That process is happening now. It needs to continue, and ultimately at the end of the day, we as policymakers need to separate domestic abusers from firearms.
How likely is it that the police groups will come to an agreement on this bill this session?
Well, it's not, ultimately it's policy, that's our job. It is the policymakers of the state, members of the legislature. What we're relying on is the subject matter expertise of the police. I spent 19 years in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. I reviewed many search warrants and signed off on them. That was our policy. But I never actually went out and executed a search warrant in those dangerous situations. These men have. The people that work for them have. It takes an incredible amount of preparation and coordination. So it's not as much as getting their sign off as it is we need their subject matter expertise to help us craft the right public policy on this to make sure that they're being supported with the resources and the tools they need to execute these safely, not only for the officers involved, also for the offender involved and anyone else that may be in that residence. Again, I would highlight, we've had situations around this country where those search warrants executions have gone terribly bad. We do not want that to be the policy of the state of Illinois. So we got to get it right.
We've heard now from the Senate President, the House Speaker, and the Governor really saying there's not really an appetite in Springfield for a new public contributions to a new Bears stadium. I wonder what your thoughts are on that and the messaging so far from the legislature and the Governor's office.
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague. He's been a little more involved on that, and as we cover everything, Senator Seth Lewis.
I guess if I can tighten up my question, should the legislature be entertaining these conversations with the Bears, with the White Sox, with professional sports teams in Chicago?
Thank you, Lee. We should always entertain opportunity. I mean, Illinois is a place in which people have ideas and they have dreams and they want us to do things. So I do not bemoan anyone to come to us with an idea for us to think about. However, this idea right now is probably not the right time. And the Bears, they have an idea. They want to keep us entertained. They want to promote a franchise that we all love dearly. But at the same time, there are other priorities within this state that we need to address. And the financial model, I had the Sports Facility Authority and their president in my committee yesterday. We walked through this, and there's a lot, it's a big hurdle for us to get past here in Springfield when you actually look at the technical specifics of what's being proposed. And I don't believe locking up 40 years of bonding authority and placing that on the residents of Chicago, which will have to contribute to this. I mean, I want to make sure that you understand this. The residents of Chicago will have to contribute their taxpayer money via LGDF for any shortfall. That's current statute and will probably be part of any, if there is a negotiation for the Bears. So I don't see it happening right now.
Leader, just on the bills one more time. I mean, obviously, you know that Democrats are pretty resistant to increased penalties, changing even the Pretrial Fairness Act probably. It's realistic to get these across the finish line.
Well, I would say there's been 4 trailers to the Safety Act, which, and specifically there was one trailer to the Pretrial Fairness Act already. We want to get, we want to be serious and change reckless criminal behavior. Increasing the penalties and fleeing and looting is the best first step we can take. And the next tragedy that occurs, we're going to wish we had. We need to tackle this. It's a growing epidemic. We want to get serious about domestic violence, standing up for victims. Karina's Law, incredibly important. Senator Steve McClure's proposal on increasing the penalties on violating an order of protection, incredibly important, a strong step forward. Flipping the presumption under the Pretrial Fairness Act, increasing those that are being detained that cause bodily harm in a domestic situation, a strong step forward that is going to protect women and children, victims of these domestic abusers. There is no one proposal that is going to solve domestic violence. It is a comprehensive approach. There are 3 on the table right now. Right now, the Democrats are focused on just Karina's bill. I hope Senator McClure's bill should get serious consideration. And I've not filed this one yet, so in fairness, I will be speaking with my colleagues on it. This is a simple one. Let's just flip the burden. Talk to prosecutors. This would make an incredible change in holding domestic abusers accountable.
You say simple one, are there domestic violence advocacy groups, survivor advocacy groups that you've spoken to that are behind this, or?
Not yet, Jerry. This happened this week, the situation in Villa Park, and really kind of walking through that situation. Under my proposal, that individual would not have been out, and we would have one less deceased victim from domestic violence. So I have not had that opportunity yet as we've been crafting policy, but that will come.
Leader, a year ago, when we're talking about the budget in the Senate and how the process was working between Republicans and Democrats, you were pretty optimistic. I wonder where your thoughts are now at this stage of the budget making process. How are you guys getting along?
Process is running as it was last year. We've added 2 budgeteers. It was a very robust process last year, so I was thrilled to add Leader Sally Turner and Senator Seth Lewis to our budget negotiating team. They're meeting right now. They're meeting very actively, ongoing. So I would say the process is the same. We started actually earlier this year than we started last year. That was something the president and I talked about afterwards, how we could actually tweak and improve. But the willingness for collaboration from the majority party in the Senate is still there. It'd be helpful if we had a little more of it from everyone, but certainly from the Senate, it's there, and we're working through the process.
Thanks, everybody. We have to get to committee. We're gonna let these guys go.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.